Guys, welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Paul versus August fight. If you are new around here though and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Paul is 7-1 with 4 KOs and August is 10-1 with 5 KOs. This fight is an 8-round fight in the middleweight division. Paul's last fight was a win via unanimous decision versus Diaz, and August's last fight was a win via unanimous decision versus Martin. Paul is 26 and August is 35. August's loss came by TKO in round 2 versus Abraham in 2018. Paul's loss came by split decision versus Fury in 2023. So to speak a bit more about what I've just said there. So of course it's been for an 8-round fight. It's a kind of step down in that aspect for Paul. He's been fighting 10-round fights, and so it's a step down to an extent. But August it's a step up. I believe this might be his first or second 8-round fight, and so Paul is obviously more used to fighting the longer rounds, and I mean he's gone to the decision the past 3 fights for him, so he's more used to it now than August, who's never been a 10-round distance or an 8-round distance, and so I think Paul might be able to hold up a little bit better, or you never know, August could hold up better, and we'll have to wait and see. Paul, like I said, his last fight was against Diaz. It was to get back to winning ways. It was a relatively easier performance, to be honest, and it wasn't too difficult. Diaz didn't really offer loads, and when he did, Paul seemed to be able to weather it quite well. August, his last fight, I mean, it's a unanimous decision. It's a fight which, it's not crazy good. It's alright. It's against an opponent who is a much lesser opponent, in my opinion, than what Paul is. I don't think Paul is a crazily good boxer, but I think this is a step up for him, and I respect Paul for also taking this fight because, like I said, like he's been saying, he wants to move down that more boxing route now, and you can't really just be boxing MMA fighters your whole career, and if a fight versus KSI is not going to actually come to anything, then you might as well start, if you have that passion for it, you might as well just start going down the proper route. And so it seems like that's what he's doing now. He's giving fighters coming up opportunities, which is nice to see, and he's going to have to build himself, and this is a good stepping stone to where I'm sure he's going to want to go. I think if he wants to go down the normal route, he could fight this fight. If he wins this one comfortably, he could go on to fight for a low-level title fight, and so it's just down to if that's what he wants to do. It might get him less money. Well, definitely will get him less money than some of the bigger fights he's had in the past, but if his passion is that, you've got to deal with, he doesn't need the money, and so he doesn't need the ticket sales really, and if he's going to build himself up, he's going to gain more respect, and he's also going to then eventually, possibly, if he gets to that level, get to the level of fighting for a world title. If he ever does get to that level, obviously he's a long way to go, but if he ever does, then that's the way to go about it, and so he's going down the, in my opinion, best route. Obviously August is a lot older than Paul. He's the more experienced fighter out of the two, and he is the older one, and so that obviously could play a factor in the fact he has suffered a KO defeat against a much lesser opponent. Obviously that was a little while ago, but there's possible signs there that he can be hurt and is available to get hurt. Also on this card, there's Green versus Cruz Dezern for the vacant WBC World Super Middleweight title, in which I think Green will win via a unanimous decision. I think Cruz Dezern is very tough and has shown that in the past, but I think Green is the fighter coming up and the fighter to beat in this division, the super middleweight division, and she's very, very game and very tough and aggressive, and I think she's going to win. I don't think she's going to stop Cruz Dezern because, like I said, she's tough in her own right and knows how to take a punch, but I think Green is just going to be able to outwork her and win that way because I think Cruz Dezern is a bit past it now. But it is a good fight, and it's a good world title fight as well, and so yeah, moving back onto the main event, Paul as a fighter, he's got a good jab when he uses it. He doesn't use it loads. He didn't use it too much in that last fight versus Diaz, but he can set up shots nicely when he does use it off of that. He's got good timing. Timing has been a thing which he's used to stop a few of his opponents. His power is definitely there. I mean, he's dropped all of his opponents, I believe, at some point, and so he's most definitely got the power there. And like I mentioned, August has been stopped against a lesser opponent, and I'm sure Paul has seen that fight, and so he's definitely going to be able to capitalise on that, I think, and he's most definitely got the power there, and he has the necessary aggressiveness there to push the pace and be the pressure fighter to get the knockdown if necessary, or the knockout if he can, or he can kind of sit on the back foot and wait and be the more patient and then time his shots. I think he's got a couple options there. He changes levels relatively well. I'd like to see him do it possibly a little bit more, but he does do it well when he wants to. He finds gaps quite well. He's a pressure fighter, front foot fighter, a bit more of a mid-range fighter. He's tough. He can pick his shots well when he does use his jab, but it's not always amazing if he's not using that. He moves with his punches. Like I said, he kind of, when he's going to throw a big overhand, he's going to then move along with it, and so that's going to mean that he's less of a chance to get countered. He, in my opinion, moves better than what August does. Like, I'm going to speak about him in a minute, but I don't think he moves amazingly. He's used to going all the rounds, like I mentioned, and he can go all the rounds relatively well. He does tire a bit, but he does put on a lot of pressure, and so fair enough. But he's also dropped he dropped Silva and he dropped Fury in the final rounds of their fights, and so I think he is used to going all the rounds and can do it, and still has that kind of second wind and burst of energy in the later rounds. And he definitely, in my opinion, has the stronger guard defensively. I think he has the stronger guard out of the two of them. So to speak about his negatives, of course, he has all the pressure on him, and he's going to have to come and deliver here. And if he doesn't deliver here, then I don't really know where he really goes from here, bar a possible KSI fight, but I don't even know if that's going to be happening anymore. So he realistically does have to win here. He can come in a bit wild, and he did that against Diaz. He was a bit wild, he was a bit reckless against an opponent who was a bit more of a technical boxer and knows how to deal with that than what Diaz is. He could have really moved out of the way and really countered him with shots coming in like that. He can be held at a jab, and Fury showed that throughout a lot of that fight. He was very much held at a jab, and at that point he became a bit one-dimensional, Paul, and just started doing the overhand over and over again. It can become predictable, and it did become predictable. Obviously, he did get a knockdown, but there was a few rounds in that fight which had become very predictable, especially in the 7th, the 8th round. He crosses over his legs a bit at times. He stands a bit straight on at times. He's got a bit of a weak defense in general. He's got a stronger guard, but it's not crazy good guard. But you know, I still think it is stronger than August. To be fair, he can be a bit sloppy and close, and just try and just trying to throw and it's just not landing, and it can be a bit sloppy and a bit messy and close. He hasn't really got much defensive movement, to be honest. I think he moves better than August, but it's still not amazing. He is not overly really technical either. He can leave his chin up in the air, and he can struggle a bit on the back foot, but he hasn't really put on the back foot loads yet. So, you know, it'd be interesting to see somebody like August, who is an aggressive fighter himself, can he put Paul on the back foot? And like I say, he can tire a bit, but I think he is more used to it than August. So to speak about August, he of course is the more experienced out of the two, so that's what they're kind of branding it as, and that's what the whole boxing, Paul going into proper boxing, is to be seen as. He needs a test, and he's fighting a more experienced fighter, but is that going to make much of a difference? I don't know. He's got shot variation, a good shot variation, and he is willing to let his hands go. He can change levels well, and he does do good body work. He won't be bullied. He's aggressive. He's a good in-close fighter. I think he could possibly put Paul on the back foot. He will be wanting to push you back, and he's a physical fighter. He aims to work angles and does it all right. It's not amazing, but he does it all right. He has a nice uppercut at times. He throws all in his punches. He gives all in his punches. He's not got a crazy knockout ratio, but he does give all into his punches. He's not really got too much to lose. Obviously, him as the professional boxer, if he loses to Paul, then he goes back to being a nobody fighter, but he didn't really have a massive platform anyway, so this fight's given him a platform. So I suppose if he goes back to being a fighter that nobody really cares about after this, then it's not really nothing to lose, really. And he can outwork you when he wants to, and when he does put his shots together, him being a pressure fighter as well, he is definitely open to getting hit and does get hit quite a lot. And you know, like I say, he's very much there to get hit. He's not overly fast. He's got a lack of a jab. He don't really set up his shots. He's got little defensive movement, little to no defensive movement. He lunges in quite a lot, ducks his head down quite a lot. He has quite wide overhands. He stands upright. His accuracy can be a bit off. He's a bit wild at times. He can struggle at a mid-range, and that's when he starts to lunge in a bit. He's not overly technical either. He's been hurt, of course, and he can be timed coming in. And so there's definitely defensive things there, which I think he does wrong, but then also attacking-wise, there's things he does wrong. And I don't think he's a crazily tough opponent, but I think it is good matchmaking and a good opponent pick. And I mean, Paul is the favourite in my opinion, and I think that Paul will win via KO in round 5. I think he's going to return back to KO ways, and I think the only reason why he hasn't really stopped any of his last few opponents is because they've been tough opponents. Like, they've not been tough in the way of boxing skill wise, but they've been tough as in their game. Like, Diaz can take a shot better than anybody. Fury has proven, I mean, it wasn't an amazingly good knockdown, but he can somewhat take a shot. And Silva can take a shot as well because he's been there and done that. And so August, I don't think he's got the same level of chin, and I think he's going to get timed coming in most likely, and because he's going to be very aggressive, and I think they're going to know that. And it's just if Paul can weather the storm of August, which I think he can, and then I think he would get timed coming in because he's very much there to get hit. But yeah, and then who he could go on to fight, I don't know. KSI, other than that, I don't know. With the way that things are going now with him, he could go on to fight anybody, and I suppose that gives him that luxury, and it's a nice thing for him, but I can't say who he could go on to fight next. I have no idea. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like if you didn't, like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.